This lighting is transphobic. Transphobic.
One of the oldest trans men, Buck Angel, he almost died from testosterone. You're saying right now it saved your life, you may still die from it, you don't know.
See, this is where shape kind of annoys me a little bit. Saying that you died for an ideology, no. If he died from testosterone, he would have died from a side effect of a medicine that was required for him.
As a Christian, I truly believe that God created male and female, and he created that throughout life, throughout.
Male and female are not genders. Just saying, that's referring to sex, different concept. Hi everyone, welcome back. Look at the camera.
Hi.
She's like, what's a camera? Welcome back to our channel. She's like, put me down, girl. Do you want to sit on my lap or no?
I guess.
You want to be here for the video or not?
I'll think about it.
I don't think she's been on my channel yet, but this is Birdie. She's named after Burdette from Super Mario. The first ever trans Mario character, if you're curious.
What the dog doing?
Yeah, you're such a good girl.
I know, right?
Okay, you can either sit here or you can go play. What do you want to do?
I just sit.
She said, I'll sit. Okay, she'll sit for a minute. We'll see what she does. So today's video is a video that you guys have been waiting for a minute. I mean, I've gotten a lot of comments saying, oh my God, I saw you on Jubilee. When are you gonna talk about your experience? Tell us what goes on behind the scenes, like react to you on Jubilee. And that's what this video is going to be. I'm finally doing it for you guys. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I was featured in this Jubilee video titled, Should Minors Transition? Detransition versus Trans. Okay, Birdie, you are making me so hot right now. Can I put you down?
Okay, bye.
Good girl. I love you.
Love you
You
too.
can stay. Yeah, you don't have to leave.
Okay.
Oh, good shake. Okay. And now before we start watching this video, I do want to say that this was a great experience. I had a lot of fun on this panel. I think that this panel went really, really well. A lot of times when I react to Jubilee videos, especially the trans Jubilee videos, I get kind of upset because I always felt like the trans people were being attacked, or maybe they weren't saying the things that I wish I could have said if I was there. And of course, we all have different experiences. We all have different opinions. So I totally get that. But you know, I was just like, I need to be there. I want to be there. I want to participate. And I was finally able to. So it was great. But there is definitely some things that I want to clear up. It was like a 2-3 hour conversation, and obviously a lot of it had to be cut out. I understand it's a YouTube video. You know, they can't upload a 3-hour conversation for YouTube. So I totally get that, but I do just want to kind of give you my insight into the conversation and maybe fill you guys in on some things that weren't included in the video. I post new videos every week here on my channel, so if you guys are not yet subscribed, go ahead and do that right now. I'll wait for you, go ahead. I also, while I'm waiting, I have a Twitch channel, so if you guys like gaming and you want to watch me play some games, chat with me, feel free to follow me on my Twitch channel. The link is right down below. But yeah, are you done? Thank you very much. Make sure to follow me over on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, all those different places to keep us up to date with me as possible. And I also have a Patreon, so if you guys like the work that I do here in my channel and you want to donate, the link for that is down below as well. But yeah, with no further ado, let's get right into this Jubilee video. I'm gonna do my best to include as much of the conversation as I can, but of course, the original video is 42 minutes long and I don't want this video to be super long, so I'm gonna just talk about the things that I feel like I wanna talk about. Duh. Okay, let's start.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. Gender-related treatment should be banned for minors. I repeat, gender-related treatment should be banned for minors.
Okay, I have to just say already, like, the questions that they gave us were very leading in a way. I understand it's a conversation that they're trying to get views, obviously, and especially because they made this question the title. Of course, you're gonna get a lot of transphobes watching this video, a lot of people that just don't like trans people watching the video. And in this moment when they asked this, I got kind of upset because of all of the bills and all of the laws that are being passed right now banning gender affirming care for minors. With the work that I do, with the people that I've met, the people that I've talked to, I know how life-saving and effective and gender affirming care is for minors. It is for everybody, but especially for that very, very vulnerable youth population.
Medical transition is no place for a child. I transition as an adult and I have medical complications. I have mental health issues. Child cannot consent to a medical transition because kids want to eat ice cream every day. It doesn't mean that they should.
Now I have to say, I do like Shape as a person. I like Luca, I like everybody on the panel. Everybody was super, super cool. You know, I know that some of these people have kind of out there personalities online and they can say some things that are very damaging to the trans community, to be honest, but I don't know, having conversations with them in real life felt very real and authentic. And I feel like just a lot of the positions that especially Shape has comes from a place of trauma. And I do feel really, really strongly for them because I know it can't be easy what they've gone through. I know it can't be easy to deal with so many complications from surgeries that you thought were going to fix your life or thought they were going to help you. So it does really, really make me sad, but at the same time, we cannot compare gender-related treatment to eating ice cream. We can't say that it's a decision that kids can't consent to because that's not how medicine works. Are we gonna now say that kids can't consent to antidepressants? Because antidepressants can have a lot of the same side effects. Like, they have a risk of possible infertility, they have a risk of increasing depressive symptoms and anxiety symptoms, they have risks of losing bone density, all of these things that people always cite when it comes to HRT and when it comes to puberty blockers, but nobody ever mentions the fact that so many other medicines that kids are put on also have the same effects. Additionally, gender affirming care is very, very successful at reducing depressive symptoms, anxiety symptoms, symptoms of dysphoria for trans youth. The rate that it decreases depression and anxiety and all of these things for these kids, not kids, I don't want to say kids, for people that are on this gender affirming care is higher than it is for most antidepressants, most other medicines that are highly regarded. Like, if a kid is diagnosed with cancer, are you going to say that they can't consent to medical treatment because their hair can fall out and, it could affect their fertility? No, you're gonna give them the treatment because that holds the least amount of risk for them.
I did transition as a minor. I was a teenager who had a lot of mental health issues and had been sexually exploited and hated my body. And it ended with me kind of finding spaces where that was twisted into, no, you're just a boy in the wrong body. And it ended with me having my first ever medical intervention being a double mastectomy at 16 before any hormones, before anything else. And because of transitioning at such a young age, in the past 6 months, I have watched my body fall apart and waste away in front of me. I have constant joint pain. I've watched my muscle mass waste away. I've watched my vocal cords hurt. I don't know if I'll ever be able to carry a child. The evidence we have suggests that the best way to figure out if gender dysphoria persists into adulthood is to let them grow up.
Hearing Luca's story is obviously heartbreaking. Not only the fact that they had surgery and were put onto hormones when they don't feel like that was really the right path for them, but just the effects that they went through, the side effects that they went through from hormones just weren't great. Even if they really were trans, they just wouldn't be great side effects to go through. And that's awful. That's really, really sad. At the same time, though, I do have to stand with what I believe, and that is that gender affirming care is safe and effective for trans youth. That's what tens and tens of studies have cited. That's what they've all concluded. That's what every single major medical organization says. And it kind of frustrated me to see Luca using her really, really unfortunate and really, really sad experience to kind of push against gender affirming care for all trans youth. Just because it didn't work out for Luca and the process failed Luca and doctors failed Luca doesn't mean that this care and this medicine should be banned. I just want to make it clear that I really, really care about Luca. I think that, I don't know, it's just sad. Like, I don't even know what else to say. It's really, really sad. I do want to comment on that last statement that she said, that the evidence that we have shows that the best way to see if gender dysphoria persists into adulthood is to let them grow up. This is a bit misleading, and again, it's really unfortunate because her experience is so valid. It's so, it's really, really sad, but I just hear the transphobic talking points coming through and I hear the conservative talking points coming through, and it's dangerous. A common narrative with transphobes is that kids will outgrow their gender dysphoria at puberty, and if you suppress their puberty and do all this stuff, then they're gonna end up regretting it. And that's what I hear when I hear Luca say that. However, that's not what the evidence really shows. The evidence does show that a lot of kids will outgrow gender dysphoria when they hit puberty, but gender affirming care doesn't start until after puberty, or until after you start puberty. So those kids that grew out of it by puberty would never even be on hormones, would never even get to the puberty blocker stage.
Because a lot of these kids will grow out of it, and many of them will just grow up and end up being gay or gender nonconforming.
Yep.
Can the disagreeer step forward?
I mean, if we're gonna be honest, every major medical organization supports gender affirming care for trans youth. They say
absolutely
it's
do.
safe and it's life-saving. And there are numerous studies that back that up.
The study that backs it up for puberty blockers is the Dutch protocol, and the same scientists.
I have 10 studies that I can bring to you
The
right now.
same scientists that.
Okay, I had to say, I shouldn't have interrupted. That's my bad. I should not have interrupted. Not nice. But again, like I said, it really, really did bother me that Luca was using her experience of being failed by the system to try to ban healthcare for trans youth. The Dutch protocol that she's referring to is one that says that affirmation-only models are not the best, and that there should be, mental health evaluation beforehand, and we should not just push people into transition. And I totally agree with that. However, that does not mean that gender-affirming care is not safe, life-saving, and effective for trans youth. And the affirmation-only model is not what we have in the United States. It is not the protocol for trans kids. WPATH and other medical organizations have guidelines that should be followed, especially for trans youth, and they were not in Luca's case. case?
Brought that up, have since rolled it back and said it was never supposed to be applied the way it has. The American medical industry, we all know, is money hungry and has gone off the rails.
I do agree that there are definitely some doctors out there that may be taking advantage of trans people, and I'm sorry that you went through this. Truly, I really am sorry, but trans kids are valid, and it's not a decision that they're making.
Right.
I think something was cut out right there. I'm pretty sure that I said I support, going through the full mental evaluation, getting multiple doctors to sign off on it, getting psychiatrists to sign off on it, following WPATH's guidelines. I'm pretty sure I said that there. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I did. But Ari, the trans man in the green in the middle, did talk about it. So I think that's maybe why they didn't feel like I needed to say it, which is fine.
I want to speak to that real quick. Like, I came out 13 years ago when
I love Ari. He's so fun.
I was 14. And I knew, not that I was trans, but that I was a boy. I had to go through a lengthy process of therapy and seeing an endocrinologist and like go through different tests and exams to make sure that this was real to everyone else involved. Transitioning and being trans was just a process I went through to become who I always knew I was. It wasn't a like decision that I made. It was a life or death thing for me. And if I hadn't gotten on hormones and gotten surgery at 16, I don't know if I would be here.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the people commenting, at least in my opinion, were saying, oh, this is so sad that this happened to Luca, which is true, but then using that to say, no trans youth should be able to get on this care. This is just awful care for everybody. But then ignored Ari's story where he said, I don't think I would be here if I didn't have this gender affirming care. Where's the empathy for Ari? Where's the empathy for Lucky's story? Where's the empathy for the 55% of trans masculine youth that are at risk of committing suicide? And it's really unfortunate that it didn't come across in the video, but I feel like we all kind of agreed that this medical diagnosis and this lengthy process needs to happen for trans youth. It needs to happen. When you're an adult, informed consent can work, that's fine. You're an adult, you can make your own decisions. But as a youth, I think that those steps beforehand are very, very necessary. And Luca's story shows why.
Like when we look at the data and we look at the statistics and we look at the research, the vast majority of these surgeries are happening to adults. They're not minors. Yeah. So let's start there, right? And then further than that, if we look at puberty blockers are reversible. So when it comes to children, when we talk about puberty blockers, that gives them a shot.
Yeah.
And it gives them autonomy over their bodies. It gives them a space that they can explore their expression. They can explore who they are without surgeries, without all of these other things that could have permanent effects.
So there is such thing as gender fluid. How
Yes.
do you know that this kid is not going to change their gender expression later on?
So that's a good question. Of course, gender expression is very, very fluid. Gender identity can even be kind of fluid. But that's why this beforehand analysis is so important, because one of the requirements is that this gender dysphoria and this desire to transition is persistent, consistent, and insistent, meaning it's not going to go away and it's been there for a considerable amount of time.
We really actually don't have studies on children that are taken over long term, like over 10 years, 20 years. You've only been on testosterone 14 years. One of the oldest trans men, Buck Angel, he almost died from testosterone. You're saying right now it saved your life, you may still die from it. You don't know. You're
die
still
happy.
Exactly.
You'll die for ideology, and a lot of people have died for an ideology.
See, this is where Shape kind of annoys me a little bit. Shape, you're awesome. I know you're probably watching this. You're cool, whatever. But saying that you died for an ideology, no. If he died from testosterone, he would have died from a side effect of a medicine that was required for him, just like many other people do. But again, Shape is right when they say that we don't have studies from 10 to 20 years of people on hormone replacement therapy and stuff, but at least from people that transitioned as a minor, as a youth. But there are trans elders that have been on hormones their entire life. There's a trans woman that I follow on TikTok. Her name is Marty. She's been on hormones since she was 17 years old. And she's in her 70s now. So, I mean, you can take anecdotal evidence from wherever, but I mean, she's happy. She lived her life in a happy, successful way. Like, that fear of death from hormones is honestly a bit irrational when it comes to this community. It's either they die now because they don't want to be here, or they die in 50 years because of complications from medicine that saved them 50 years ago. And it sucks that I have to say that because, again, nobody's having these conversations about any other medication. It's just because it's for trans people.
It's not an ideology.
But we have more
is.
people that are dying because
an
they're not
idea that you were
allowed
born
to
in the wrong
express
body.
themselves. Look at the suicide rate of trans masculine folks is at 55%. And one of the factors that could save their lives is support.
Again, Shape, we're cool. I respect you and everything like that, but maybe this is just the editing, but like shaking your head no at the suicide rates for trans masculine youth. If anybody isn't showing empathy for the other side, wouldn't you say that's Shape? Maybe I'm interpreting it wrong. Maybe Shape was, you know, talking about something different, nodding their head to something different, but it's unfortunate that people have so much empathy for Luca. I mean, rightfully so. You can have empathy for Luca. You should have empathy for Luca. But you should also have empathy for trans kids who need this care.
Right? And so if we have folks that are committing suicide because they're not allowed to transition, how do we fix that? If you're telling me the transition for children or minors is something that shouldn't be done.
I am very sensitive to this subject, as I've been the person who has had to talk people off the ledge when it comes to suicidality. The discussion around how we talk about suicide is a very dangerous one in this community. You know, my parents were told, do you want a dead daughter or a living son? That's not an appropriate way to talk about that.
And I understand that, but it is our trans masculine youth
I understand
that are at the highest risk
I
of
understand
suicide.
that, and they deserve help, but we also need to have a responsible conversation that is not using suicide as a means to push them down a pipeline before they have that comprehensive care.
Okay, yeah, so again, you can see that we're all agreeing on that comprehensive medical care beforehand. And I mean, I do kind of agree with what Lucas said about talking about suicide. I don't think that it's the best way to go about this. I think you can definitely use those statistics and point out those rates, but it shouldn't be like you need to do this or you're gonna lose your kid. I feel like that's just, it is hard. It's hard. I feel so bad for Luca's parents too, because I'm sure they were just doing what they thought was best, and I'm sure they were doing what they thought was going to help their kid. It's so sad. They cut me off right there, which is fine. I mean, I get we want it to be balanced, but I was about to ask Luca, would you support a trans youth going on to gender affirming care if they did have that comprehensive mental health care beforehand? And I really wish that she was able to answer that, but I guess we'll never know.
Oh yeah, no, so I'm not an interrupter. What I'm gonna say is we insult children, our youth, so much by taking away their autonomy and their own agency over their own decisions and insulting that they know who they are. Like an adult knows who they are more than they do. No one knows who I am more than I do.
Right.
And it's always been that way. I've always known who I was. I've never felt like I was in the wrong body. I just had to adjust my body. And so I think taking away kids' agency and the right to their own body is, it's anti-human.
I have a question. Do you believe minors should be able to get tattoos or plastic surgery?
So I do agree, but I also kind of disagree with Arise. I mean, obviously with Luca's story, she thought that she was trans, she thought that she knew best, and she didn't, unfortunately. So I think that we should respect trans youth, and we should respect that they likely know who they are a lot better than we would know who they are, but I still think that we need to have these safeguards in place for these trans youth. But the comparison that Luca is now making to plastic surgery and tattoos is just absurd. They are not comparable. One is healthcare, medicine, you know, life-saving, and what is art that you put on your body because it's fun? I didn't transition for fun. I transitioned because I had to. And it's important to note that when people are having these surgeries as minors and getting this care as minors, it's usually very extreme cases where the kid is saying, I can't live anymore if I don't get to transition. I can't go on anymore if I don't get to transition. What do you want a doctor to say to that?
Yeah, they're not just doling out surgeries for children. That's not happening
I had a
anywhere.
letter from a therapist in a single visit at the gender clinic office
And
before I
that was
had
abuse
the first.
from that therapist who did not psychoanalyze
awful.
the rest of your
That
issues.
shouldn't
Right, and that shouldn't
because
have happened.
your
Shouldn't
issues
happen
weren't
to you.
being trans. There were a lot of other issues that you're
I have a
addressing right
diagnosis
now.
of gender dysphoria as
And
well.
you shouldn't, you were misdiagnosed.
No, I have one.
Right.
Yeah, you had to get a second opinion, honey.
It seems like we're kind of coming at Luca like this, but I mean, when you listen to Luca's story, she was misdiagnosed. She says herself that she was never trans, so you don't have gender dysphoria if you're not trans. I said that she was misdiagnosed because the protocol was not followed for her. The protocol that's been put in place by medical organizations, by WPATH, was not followed for her. And that's awful. That's wrong. I don't think that we should blame Luca for this. I don't think we should blame Luca's parents for this. I think we should blame the doctor that did not follow the protocol.
Right.
And how was how was I supposed to do that when my parents were told
That's
that I
not
would
your
kill
fault.
myself?
But your
Yeah, that's not your
parents,
fault.
your parents,
Their biggest crime in all this was trusting a medical system that they thought would help me, and the professionals apparently not doing the right thing
I
here.
understand, but your
Yeah,
parents were
absolutely
responsible for the decisions that were made on your behalf.
I don't want to blame the parents. I don't want to blame Luca. I feel like that's really not fair. Like, this is such a serious thing. It's so scary going through these things when, you know, it's just so scary. I don't want to place blame on any of them. But as the medical professional, you need to follow the guidelines. You need to follow the protocol. Like, you just have to. In my opinion, if you don't and this happens, it's on you.
I think that what this really highlights is the importance of you sharing your story,
because what it shows is that you can't jump into these transitions, and you shouldn't listen to these doctors that push you to transition just because you're feeling a certain way.
Social media brainwashes teens to believe that they're trans.
I have to agree on that one. Like, there's this thing about it.
Right.
Like, yeah.
So this one we all kind of agreed on in the end. I'll just give you a little spoiler right now. We all kind of agreed that it can influence people to maybe question their gender identity, maybe question their sexuality, in the same ways that social media leads people to question a lot of things about themselves. You know, like I'll be scrolling TikTok and I'll be like, do I have OCD? Do I have ADHD? Do I have all of these different things? Because they list very common symptoms that are, you know, a lot of people experience, and it can kind of suck you in. I did not step forward because of the word brainwash. I feel like brainwashing is a very deliberate action. You know, you have to like purposefully brainwash people, and I don't think that's what's happening. I really don't.
Apps like TikTok give a lot of these kids so much misinformation
Yes.
and lead to people thinking they're trans when there are much deeper issues, and everyone just wants to belong and find an identity, especially when they're young. You know?
I think brainwash is such a strong
that's a
word
very
to use
aggressive
there
word. I
when
would
it's
not. That's why I hesitated to step forward.
And that's why I
yeah.
would step in and actually say it's more so of like a social contagion.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with that either. I personally don't like the term social contagion just because it's used, again, by these transphobes and anti-trans activists. It's a frequent slogan that they use, that it's a social contagion and everybody's becoming trans nowadays because it's trendy and all that kind of stuff. I don't think so. I think a lot of the reason that we're seeing more people transition is because it's becoming more socially acceptable to do so. Back when left-handedness was a bad thing, the rate of people being left-handed was very, very low. I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe it was like 2% of people. Then, once it became socially acceptable to be left-handed, the number of left-handed people increased to about 12%. Would you say that being left-handed became a social trend and a social contagion? No, you should think that maybe people stopped hiding the fact that they were left-handed and maybe stopped forcing themselves to use their right hand because they no longer had to risk being a social outcast or, you know, getting in trouble for it.
Like so much on social media, like I made a documentary on my transition and I really went into depth of like a lot of my depression that I dealt with on that, and I didn't find anyone talking about that.
I personally didn't think I was trans till I saw earlier trans YouTubers. Before I was just gender bending man. And for sure, I also feel like comparing yourself on social media to other people that are more beautiful and successful will create dysphoria of some kind. And some people,
it will affect your self-image for sure.
Because we see all those beautiful trans women that are all dolled up or had every possible plastic surgery they could ever get. You're gonna feel dysphoria. You're gonna be like,
I think if you're feeling dysphoric because of that, you likely have gender dysphoria, like just as it is, and it's just maybe making it worse. However, I do think that in general, social media is very, very toxic in that way, that we compare ourselves to other people and we want what we can't have and all that kind of stuff.
I don't look like that.
I mean, that's
so I
in
have to go
general,
through
though.
steps.
You know what I mean? Whether you're
Right.
cis or trans, everyone
So social media has
is dealing
such
with
a-
that
I've fallen
for
into
sure.
that.
It has
looking
such
at,
a bad impact on
actors
mental
and stuff.
health.
I wanted to be that muscular dude, and I wanted to do
100%.
that. So
No,
yeah,
It is such a
does
bad,
exist.
like well-documented bad impact on people's like sense
Right.
of self and mental health, and so.
But I also really quickly just want to say, like, I don't want people to think that, like, social media is turning people trans.
Yeah, we agree with that.
All right, can the disagreeer step forward?
Social media is very, very effective. You know, I mean, I personally scroll on TikTok and I'm like, do I have OCD? Do I have autism? Like all these different things. And like, it can suck you in. So it's important to be aware of those things.
I have a question for Samantha, since you have the largest platform here. Do you believe over the years you've inspired people to transition?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that I've inspired people to believe that it's okay to be transgender, it's okay to express themselves, and that it's possible to live a happy and successful life.
How do you feel about the fact that some of them are going to regret the body modifications they got and going to have like...
I think that they should go to a doctor that is well-versed in gender care and have the appropriate psychoanalytic analysis done beforehand. Right. So, I mean, of course, I feel bad for anybody that regrets what they've gone through. And if I ever influenced somebody to do something and they ended up regretting it, that would, of course, be sad and I would feel bad for them. But at the same time, I'm not going to allow the blame to be put on me, especially because I've been very, very vocal about the complications that I've had, how hard it was for me to transition, and, you know, the fact that this is not for everybody. The fact that you should go and be psychoanalyzed, the fact that you should take this slowly, and the fact that surgery should be a last resort. I'm very, very clear about that. So, and I don't think that Shape was trying to attack me. You know, they did encourage us to ask each other questions and stuff like that. So that was fine. No hard feelings.
A lot of folks are going to social media looking for possibility models. They're looking to see if they're okay. I know for me, when I was very young, looking to see if there were other people like me, because for a long time I thought that I was
The only one.
Exactly.
There's also a difference from like showing people that you can have a positive life and then telling them what to do. So I think you on your channel are kind of like, hey, look what I was able to do and how this made me feel, versus like, you should do this because I did this.
Right.
So
And
I
I'm
think,
also, I try my best to be very upfront
right,
about, you know, the
because
issues
we
of
can't help if
transitioning.
someone's
Exactly.
going to change their mind on something. Like that's inevitable.
Yeah.
We're humans.
And I have to jump
Yeah.
on one more thing with that. Like, if I'm watching her channel and it inspires me to transition, I have been watching white straight men be president for years, and I've not wanted to be president once. So I don't identify with that. If we're going to talk about brainwashing, let's talk about where we see things every single day happening a certain way versus someone just living their life authentically.
Period, Aries. Period. I love Aries. She's great.
People with gender dysphoria need therapy, not surgery.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that one.
I don't.
I've been convinced.
We all agree.
I think
It's potentially both, though.
Yes.
I think everyone with gender dysphoria needs to go through a therapeutic process and mental health care before they make that choice for themselves.
Exactly.
I personally confused a lot of my gender dysphoria for body dysmorphia because no matter how much I feminize my body, till today I still don't feel comfortable in my own body. And now, like looking among like members of trans community, I see that people keep on getting more and more surgeries. The surgeries are no longer affirming. You can just tell that this person is like struggling with body images.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I feel like a lot of trans people kind of get addicted to plastic surgery. And I also feel like Shape's experience of confusing body dysmorphia for gender dysphoria is very common as well. Not necessarily confusing the two, but having both of them and having an overlap between the two. I think that that is very, very common within the trans community.
I don't know if you guys have heard, but I've had a lot of binary trans people say that it's not a mental health issue. Like, if you're trans, and I know I don't agree with that. Like, I think there's a disconnect between the mind and the body. I guess I'm asking that. Like, it's like, do you think that it's a mental health disorder? And
I don't
needs to
think
have
being
therapy?
transgender is a mental health
disorder,
disorder.
right.
I think, you know, gender incongruence is what they're referring to it as now. It's listed as a sexual health concern, but the gender dysphoria, which is the symptom that arises when you are transgender, is a mental health concern.
So maybe I'm thinking of, like, that's what I'm
Right.
trying to say then in a sense.
And then
Yeah.
once you are diagnosed with gender dysphoria, and I feel like this is kind of what the prompt is kind of hinting at, if you do have gender dysphoria, the only treatment for that is transition. Whether that be just a social transition, a medical transition, whatever transition fits you, that is the only way to heal your gender dysphoria. When I transitioned, the first thing my mom said to me was, can't you just be gay? I just uploaded a video with my mom where she talked about it, if you want to go watch that. Hurt hearing that, but a big reason that she said that was she was afraid of what my dad would think. He's always been very, very conservative, very traditional, you could say. He would make comments about trans people, about gay people growing up, so I always knew that he wasn't necessarily accepting. So when it came down to me transitioning, I said to him, I'm going to do this. Either you're going to be the dad that accepts me and supports me through it, or like, goodbye. And he chose to support me, and we're closer than ever now. I will also say that, you know, it wasn't just like a quick 1-2. It was like, I'll help you through this. I'll answer any questions you have. We can go to a therapy session together. But if he wasn't willing to do the work with me, then I was going to say goodbye. But yeah.
And I think a lot of us go through medical transitions to easier go through social transition.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And so a lot of our folks that do transition and may detransition, both experiences are valid, but also understanding that we're not mentally ill because we're trans.
Yes.
Right? And I think that there should be a psychiatrist or someone within behavioral health to be able to say, okay, you're in the right frame of mind to make this decision. But I want to just make it very clear that trans people are not dealing with mental health because they're trans.
Absolutely.
I disagree. I feel like transgender is definitely, and elderly trans people afford for it to be classified as mental illness, so it's covered by insurance. Otherwise, why are you getting the surgeries to?
Because
but
of
if it's not a
dysphoria.
medical condition?
The dysphoria is a medical condition.
It is, but it's in your head. I would say that you have some kind of mental disorder if you're trying
right.
to mimic a stereotype of opposite sex. to
Right, but
pass
it's
in
not a
society.
mimic. It's
The treatment
aligning.
for this mental illness is to transition.
I have a question though,
Yeah.
because I have a gender dysphoria diagnosis, I always have. But I'm still where I am today.
Can I give you my honest opinion? I think that you were probably misdiagnosed.
I
and
don't think I was.
So you
Do you
do
feel
have gender
dysphoria in your body?
I certainly do now.
Yeah, me too.
Well,
I
I
because of the
you
change
want
that
you
made.
want to talk about now, but at the time,
At the time, did
at
you?
the time I genuinely believed I did. I thought it would save me, and then looking back, I realized that my dysphoria stemmed from some severe trauma that was not handled, and that's why I think that mental health step is so important.
Yeah,
because I've heard this from several other, mostly female detransitioners who we had some form of pretty bad trauma that spawned gender dysphoria symptoms.
Yeah.
And we can disagree about misdiagnosis or something later, but it felt real at the time for me.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it did. I didn't mean that.
And
In a,
no,
in a
I know.
malicious way.
And it's one of those things where that's where the mental health treatment really needs to come in and get to the root of that issue, because oftentimes, specifically with the detransitioners I've talked to, that was ignored.
So yeah, I feel like this is kind of a semantic kind of disagreement with the term misdiagnosed, and even with gender dysphoria. In my opinion, if you're not transgender, you can't have gender dysphoria. It just doesn't work like that. I mean, unless of course you're a cisgender woman and you have masculine traits that you don't like, that would kind of be gender dysphoria. But if you are born female and you don't like your breasts, but you're not trans, I don't think it's gender dysphoria. It comes down to something differently. But again, I mean, we're agreeing, which is really, really cool. Like I said, I think this conversation went really, really well. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was really cool to meet these people.
God intended for there to be only two genders.
Okay, you go first.
Okay, so as a Christian, I truly believe that God created male and female, and He created that throughout life, throughout
Male and female are not genders. Just saying, that's referring to sex, different concept.
the nature, throughout the wildlife, throughout Earth itself, and then the arguments come up into the ocean sides of, well, there's these asexual creatures and stuff like that. Well, they were designed that way for a reason, and we humans were not designed to. We were designed to procreate and be able to bring life back to the earth, because we live and we die, we live and we die. It's a rotation of a process of life in itself, and it's its own journey. So I truly do believe that there is male and there is female.
See, this is the problem with the whole reproduction argument, the whole narrative that there's only male and female because we need to reproduce and blah, 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 blah. It's deeply problematic, not even just because of trans people, like that's a separate issue, but intersex people exist. Obviously they're valid, they're here, they're everywhere. And to hear David say that it's like a mistake or a mutation or something like that is just, it's dangerous. But I think Reese is gonna talk about that in a second, so I'll let her talk.
But I can respect people's choices. However, that's where I stand on it.
Well, I'm not Christian, but I do believe there's only two biological sexes, and somehow that's how it's been designed, whether it's by higher power or by evolution. I do believe gender expression has been on a spectrum for centuries. We do have references to people who've been cross-dressing, we have references to eunuchs. And as somebody who went through transition and detransition, when I started taking testosterone, it's almost like reminded me of my original blueprint. And I feel like I went against my original blueprint and I did a lot of damage to it, and I just cannot go back to who I was, because without my testicles, I'm just too far gone in my transition. So that's where I'm at.
It must be so hard for Shape to have these feelings and to be going through that and just to feel stuck and just live with so much regret. I really do feel so strongly for Shape. It must be so hard.
Yeah, we have historically spent more time focusing on and celebrating several genders. There are several different cultures throughout the world that celebrate the different genders, and to negate the fact that they exist and to negate their validity is just wrong.
There are as many intersex people as there are redheaded people on the planet. I can name 12 people at the top of my head who are born intersex. So to pretend like there's man and woman is just erasing an entire group of people. The God you speak of, the first God that intersex people get to meet is the doctor, because it's up to their discretion of just what you're gonna be when they mutilate their body to be a man or a woman, and that is not fair.
Yeah. Right.
Period, Reese. Period. Being a mutation or being some sort of a mistake is so dangerous because it's pushing surgeons to operate on infants. Infants, babies, little children. Aren't you guys all about not mutilating children? Isn't that your whole slogan? But you don't care when they do it to intersex kids? A lot of these intersex kids grow up, they never were told that they had this surgery as a kid, and then they feel like, then they end up maybe transitioning to the other gender because that's how they feel more comfortable, or, you know, they miss their old body parts, or they have complications from the surgeries that they went through. We should not be doing this to people. If there's no harm being caused to that baby, leave them alone. Leave them alone.
And that's how they're born. But I also do believe that the initial design was for man and woman, and then somewhere along the way, viruses, mutations, diseases, plagues, all that type of stuff that we have in the world does play a part back onto the world itself. But I believe the initial intent was for God to create Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. I'm just gonna say it.
That's homophobic.
I know it sounds homophobic, and I understand
No,
I'm
it
hitting.
is.
It is homophobic.
That's okay.
Homophobia made me transition, and that's what you're perpetuating right now.
Slay, Shape, slay. Shape said, that narrative is what's hurting people, so cut it out. I literally, after Shape said that, I was like, yes, thank you, thank you.
Logically, we're different.
Yeah,
And
male
so
and female are different, exactly.
Trans people are different.
Yes.
They've found a distinct difference in the
white matter.
cortex.
There is no biomarker for trans. Some brain scan of some gay males is identical to female brain, but there is no biomarker for trans. Please don't spread misinformation.
There is science that hints towards it, it's just not confirmed.
No,
Well,
there's
confirmed,
research.
so.
that
So
is out
therefore
there
it
that
falls
have-
under the belief that there is, but there is no scientific fact to back that up, which therefore I believe that God's initial intent was to create male.
He goes, well, there's no science to back that up, so I'm just gonna go off of religion, because religion is always right. Anyways.
Transitioning improved my sex life.
Who wants to start?
I could start.
And I'm embarrassed.
Not to say that my sex life was bad
Also, I have to say, this lighting is transphobic. Transphobic.
before, but I think transitioning and coming into my body and feeling comfortable in my skin allowed me to open up more and allowed me to not only be better in bed, but also explore what my sexuality looks like.
Yeah.
Being trans also like made sex really complicated for me too, because I'm a straight guy and I pass very well, and majority of the women that I've been with, I would have to eventually kind of like break it to them that I was trans and deal with a lot of rejection. And with somebody, I would never let girls touch me or see me without clothes on. Not having a penis made me feel inferior as a man, and that no one would want me, which is why I like rejected that part of myself and never even let it be loved.
Sorry. I feel like that's such a common thing for trans people. I definitely went through something like that as well. I feel like just transness in general has been portrayed as such an awful thing for so long. It can create so much shame in you when you finally realize that you're trans, that like you think that, you know, no one will ever love you, nobody will ever want to be with you. And, you know, I struggle with that to this day. I did identify as a gay man before I transitioned. And like those relationships, I feel like I always kind of had like out of body experiences when we were like intimate. And even after I transitioned, before I had bottom surgery, I like, just like the anxiety and the dysphoria that I would feel whenever I was intimate, or like a partner would try to be intimate with me, was just like crippling.
Yeah.
So then when I had surgery and I felt more affirmed in my body, and you know, it feels right to me now, I'm finally able to have those intimate connections with people and, you know, form those deeper bonds. So it's really helped me a lot.
I'm so happy for you. That's amazing.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
I love Ari. He's great.
Can the disagree step forward?
Transition definitely ruined my sex life. I was fine with my penis, but a year after estrogen, I felt like that part didn't belong on me anymore. So I went ahead and had sex reassignment surgery. After that, my sex drive was gone pretty much. I kept on having complications. I wasn't able to keep my neovagina open despite rigorous dilation. I had multiple revisions, including colon vaginoplasty. I just got some of my sex drive back last year when I started detransitioning with testosterone, but it's kind of traumatic to have male sex drive back without my penis. Also, I want to say that sexuality is fluid. My sexuality has definitely changed once I lost my testosterone. Before, I was strictly attracted to men. After I lost my testosterone, I was attracted to people in general, because now I didn't have this like male sex drive, so I couldn't relate to men as much, as I wanted to have sex, but I just wanted to hold hands and cuddle. And now my body dysmorphia / actual gender dysphoria as well is worse than ever before. I do feel like I'm stuck in a surgically created body. I just don't think I've been really myself by trying to become a woman.
Oh, it's so sad. I just feel so bad for Shape. Oh my God. I did experience some complications with my bottom surgery, but they were able to be resolved. I did lose my sex drive for a while, but for me, it was more so about finding the balance with my hormones again and, just getting them back to being in balance. But her saying that her, vagina closed and that she wasn't able to keep it open is so scary and sad to me. And, I don't know. That's why I really, really think that you should hold off on this surgery for like as long as possible. You want to make sure that you absolutely need this surgery because it is very, very risky. It is very, very complex and there's complications with any surgery, but things can go wrong. Not everybody heals perfectly. Not everybody gets the results that they want. So it's really, really important to not only do this only when you need it, but to make sure that you go to a surgeon who is really, really well trained and well experienced and have a lot of credibility when it comes to doing the surgery. The surgeon that I went to or the clinic that I went to had been doing it for 30 plus years. And I didn't want to go to anybody else because I knew that there were newer surgeons that were coming out because of this whole trans wave, if you want to call it, the whole increase in trans people coming out and going for gender affirming care. A lot of surgeons are just trying to make money. They're just trying to get on the bandwagon and perform the surgery and make money off of us. But in reality, their training is subpar. They watch a surgeon do it a couple times, maybe try it once or twice, and then they're operating on people. That is not okay. That is so dangerous. This surgery is so complex, so intricate. Like, it really breaks my heart for people that have had complications with these surgeries because for me, it's been so life-saving and so affirming. And I just really, really wish that things were better for Shape.
Yeah, so transition did take a lot from me.
Must be really, really hard. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
If you had found the results that you desired in the beginning, would you feel differently than you do now?
No, because I realized I just miss being a man, I just miss being obsessed about sex and money. I don't want to do the whole emotional thing. And I'm talking about stereotypes, okay? So I regret, it's just like now I'm a medical patient for life. Also having sex drive back, it just reminds me that I lost all these years. I could have been having fun, whether it's chasers or, I definitely have internalized homophobia. So internalized homophobia also pushed me into transition because I felt like chasers weren't good enough because I wanted to be a woman. I wanted to escape my homosexuality. But now I realize at the end of the day, I'm a gay man and I'm still living with internalized homophobia because therapists actually never helped me with that.
The anti-trans slogans and the anti-trans activism aside, I do think that Shape is very smart and I just wish them all the best and I wish them happiness and peace in their life, truly. Same thing with Luca. You can tell that she's very, very emotional. This is very new for her. This is very traumatic for her. And that's very, very understandable. And I hope that they find the peace that they deserve. Like I said, doing this panel was such a cool experience for me. I mean, I definitely learned a lot. I definitely came into this on a bit of a defensive mode. I've seen detransitioners online that kind of join the conservative side and the anti-trans side and use their stories to perpetuate anti-trans activism and push their slogans and stuff like that. And I don't like that. I don't like it at all. However, having conversations with people who just are worried about other people like them who may be getting sucked into the wrong path, that's valid. And I also wouldn't want people to be getting sucked into the wrong path. I do kind of wish that our agreements and all that we agreed upon was shown more heavily throughout the video. I feel like, of course, maybe it was just the editing. They had to cut stuff down and the nature of the video is two opposing sides. So maybe they didn't want to put as much in, but I'm friends with, most of the people on this panel. Like I said, a bunch of us hung out after, we went out for drinks, we got some food. I have them on social media and stuff. So yeah, it was just a really, really nice experience. Of course, like I said, I did not get to include the whole video in my video today, so definitely go watch the full Jubilee video. There is some great conversation that I wasn't able to include that is kind of fun to listen to. The comments on that video are very, very upsetting to me. They did affect me a lot, I won't lie. I'm usually very, very strong when it comes to hate comments and comments being just negative towards me, but these ones really got to me for some reason. So maybe just go spread some love in the comments, not just for me, but for everybody there. I feel like it needs more positivity there, Jubilee, thank you for having me. Thank you for hosting this conversation. And, maybe I'll be back. If you guys did like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up down below. Make sure to subscribe, follow me on all my social medias, all that good stuff. And yeah, other than that, I think I'm gonna go. So thank you all so much for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone.